It's been a few weeks now that we are flooded with commentary and commentary on the commentary, analysis on the analysis of the Pew Report. There are many important new insights into what makes American Jewry tick. American Jews are diverse and increasingly diverse in their practice and their beliefs and their ways of attachment. Jewish pride is at an all-time high. But what is Jewish pride, we ask? How does it show itself? How can that private feeling of Jewish pride be brought out and led to public and communal expression in all of its various forms? In my opinion, these are the most worthy questions to be asked at this time. Last week, I joined in on a conference call which was hosted by Hebrew Union College. 200 rabbis joined the call, while Professor Stephen Cohen from HUC's New York campus and Professor Sarah Ben-Or from HUC's Los Angeles campus reflected on what they think we need to know, what rabbis need to know about the Pew Report. Both of these professors, both of these sociologists were among those who helped to create the study and then to analyze its results. Professors Cohen and Ben-Or did not differ much in their interpretations, nor did they differ all that much about what we should do in response to these findings. They are sociologists, after all. And so predictably, they instructed us, they begged us, that we must make more social connections among our people. Jewish summer camps and teen trips to Israel. University campus life must include liberal Jewish activity and leadership, that we must not surrender that essential work to Chabad. They say we must create a series of Jewish social apps for iPhones and Facebook, every creative outlet to connect Jews one to another. Find donors to make synagogue life less expensive and make conversion easy. Professor Cohen says many synagogues have empty seats, but there are no empty seats at Jewish film festivals. And so synagogues, for example, should expand their scope to create meeting places for Jews, especially younger Jews. Professor Ben-Or pointed to Ron Wolfson's book, Relational Judaism. She has added it to her syllabus this semester, making it required reading for future rabbis and for Jewish communal workers. We have made this book required reading here at Holy Blossom Temple too. Our lay leadership and our professional leadership, we are studying Professor Wolfson's Relational Judaism to reframe what we do with an eye on the relational, an eye on the ties that bind us, one to another, one to our Jewish heritage, and one to our God. The difference between the two experts on the phone was their tone. Ben-Or warned us not to be alarmist, while Cohen admitted through a rare crack in his voice that he is devastated by the results of the Pew study. He said, "Dear rabbis, we have just learned that we have lost 2 million of our children. We are barely replacing ourselves. If there are no Jews, there is no Judaism." The 20th century French essayist Edmund Flegg recalls the biblical Abraham and writes, "And I say to myself, from this remote ancestor right down to my own parents, all these ancestors have handed me a truth which flowed in their blood, which now flows in mine. Shall I not hand it on with my blood to those of my blood? And I say to you, will you take it from me, my child? Will you hand it on? Perhaps you will wish to abandon it, Flegg writes. If so, let it be for a greater truth, if there is one. I shall not blame you. It will be my fault. I shall have failed to hand it on to you as I received it. But of this I am sure, whether you abandon it or whether you follow it, the people Israel will journey on until the end of days. This is a kind of confession of the modern Jewish era. Edmund Flegg may have lacked faith in himself and in his ability to inspire Jewish life in his own children. He may have lacked faith in his children to be open-minded enough to receive the profound and the practical wisdom of Judaism. And Flegg may have lacked faith in his children to be open-hearted enough to perceive the exquisite morality of Judaism. But he did not lack faith in the promise made to Abraham. Edmund Flegg believed with perfect faith that the Jewish people is an eternal people. Shimon Ravidovich may refer to the children of Israel as the ever-dying people, but Flegg articulated a faith that is also verified by history. The people Israel is an eternal people. And come what may, pogrom, Inquisition, Holocaust, come what may, even the blessings of acceptance and opportunity and freedom and privilege, come what may, the Jewish people will endure. In last week's parasha, Abraham entered into a covenant with God, and he was promised progeny beyond his wildest dreams. God took Abraham outside into the open desert sky by night and said, "Look toward the heavens and count the stars if you are able to count them. So shall be your descendants." In this week's parasha, there is a repetition. When Abraham and Isaac, the first Jewish father and the first Jewish son, take that walk up to Mount Moriah, there is a repetition in the text. At each stage of their journey, it is written, "Vayalchu shnehem yachdav." The two of them walked on together. It was a shared journey, a joint effort. It was, we could say, relational Judaism. Vayalchu shnehem yachdav. We picture them hand in hand, father and son, parent and child. Jewish continuity, ledor vador, all those words we use to express our hopes for the Jewish future. But then, as today, there was a terrifying tension in the backdrop. There is an intensity to this journey, ledor vador. Abraham and Isaac barely speak to one another. Abraham reassures his child. He says, "Hineni, here I am, my son." But there is impending doom at the peak of the mountain. And there is a hovering mystery beyond them. What will become of us? Good God, what will become of us? There is no certainty for them how this story will end, and yet the two of them walk on together. They continue to climb, they continue to ascend, as if they are magnetically drawn to find out. Perhaps they held hands, clinging to one another more out of fear than out of love. And what was their reward? After Abraham raises his knife, and after Isaac is untied from the altar, and after the ram is sacrificed in his place, what was their reward? God says, "By myself do I swear, because you did not withhold your son from me, your only one, I will bless you greatly, and I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars of the heavens and as the sands of the seashore. Through your descendants, the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because you have hearkened to my voice." This is a wonderful promise. This is a great blessing, but it was not new. Abraham earned that very same blessing in last week's Torah portion. He nearly sacrifices his son, and he gets nothing new. What was his reward? Only reinforcement of the original blessing. And that, it seems, is significant. Reinforcement, confirmation, affirmation, a reassuring restatement that the contract, the covenant, the relationship still stands. And perhaps this is the best that we can hope for. Study after study, report after report, perhaps this is what we long for most of all, the promise of eternity. Now, at the end of chapter 22, it says that Abraham returned to the bottom of the mountain with his servants, and he settled in Beersheba. It does not say again, "Vayalchu shnehem yachtav," that the two of them, one generation and the next, settled down together. And so the text cries out, what on earth became of Isaac? Our sages fill in the gaps and say, well, he must have found another way down the mountain, and he must have found another place to settle. That was not the end of his Jewish line. The path that he carved out for himself and the place that he settled was good enough. And it gave way to the next generation. Jacob, his son, did even better than Isaac. So perhaps this is the way it always goes, that the next generation must carve their own way back down the mountain, must establish for themselves a new way to be Jewish. If we were to ask a 32-year-old living today in Toronto, here's what we might hear about why she does not come around very often. She might say, at 32, I barely qualify as a millennial. I wrote my first essay with a pen and paper, but by the time I graduated from university, I owned a cell phone and used Google as a verb. I still remember the home phone numbers of my old high school friends, but don't ask me to recite my husband's cell number. I'd have to check my contacts list. Armed with the latest surveys, along with personal testimonies from friends and acquaintances, I can explain how young adults perceive Jewish institutions to be too political, too exclusive, too old-fashioned, too unconcerned with social justice, and too unwelcoming to lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people. I can point to research that shows young Jews often feel, rightly or wrongly, they feel that they have to choose between their intellectual integrity and a faith that they don't even know how to articulate for themselves. Synagogue life seems too much like sticking to a list of rules and expectations, including writing a big check. Millennials long for sacred communities in which they can wrestle with faith and doubt, where they can meet like-minded people and create their own Jewish expression. Time and again, the assumption among Jewish communal leaders is that the key to drawing 20 and 30-somethings back into Jewish organizational life is simply to make a few style updates, edgier music, more casual services, a coffee shop in the lobby, a rabbi who wears skinny jeans, an updated website that includes online giving. But here's the thing, she writes, having been advertised to our whole lives, We millennials are highly sensitive to gimmick meters, and we're not easily impressed with consumerism or performances. In fact, I would argue that synagogue as performance, she writes, is just one more thing driving us away. We are the DIY generation. Do it yourself. Many of us are finding ourselves increasingly drawn to Orthodox synagogues, not because we intend to be Orthodox, but precisely because the old world forms of prayer seem unpretentious and unconcerned with being cool, and we find that refreshing. What millennials really want from the synagogue is not a change in style, but a change in substance. We want an end to the ethnic wars. We want a welcome without such a hefty price tag. We want to be known for what we stand for and not for what we stand against. We want to ask questions that don't have predetermined answers. We want synagogues to emphasize an allegiance to what is just, above and beyond a simple allegiance to any state, even the Jewish state. We want synagogues where not everyone looks alike, not everyone is straight, not everyone has advanced degrees, not everyone has been there for multiple generations, not everyone lives in the neighborhood, not everyone is even Jewish, and yet everyone is made to feel truly welcome. We want to be challenged to live lives of holiness, not only when it comes to occasional life cycle events, but also when it comes to everyday living, caring for the poor, pursuing peace, getting serious about caring for the environment, and acting for the well-being not only of our Jewish brothers and sisters, but also for strangers in our own city and across the planet. We want to make a home in the synagogue. We really do. But business as usual will not keep us around. We're not leaving synagogues because we don't find the cool factor there. We're leaving because we don't find much God there. Like every generation before ours, every generation after ours too, deep down we long for drawing closer to the sacred, drawing closer to the good, drawing closer to what seems godlike, if not to God himself. This monologue is a minor adaptation, my Jewish adaptation, of an opinion piece written by Rachel Held Evans, who writes Why Millennials Are Leaving the Church. Many of her insights easily translate to our world. Those stars in the sky that Abraham looked toward and counted them as best he could. From an earthbound perspective, a star looks tiny. From the viewpoint of heaven, each star is a world in and of itself. An entire solar system can revolve around it. The descendants of Abraham seem insignificant in terms of numbers and power, but each one is an indispensable part of God's plan. Each and every one of them is precious. Each individual Jew, each individual human being is a world in and of himself, in and of herself. I believe that synagogues of all shapes and sizes are best equipped to respond to these challenges. And I believe that large and liberal synagogues like ours are the best of the best equipped to respond to the needs of the coming generations, because we have human resources of all kinds, and it takes each and every one of us to respond seriously and with integrity and with joy. The stakes are high, and there are no shortcuts, and there are no messiahs. Our Torah portion, the Abraham and Isaac saga, highlights that this sacred task has always been critical, a rescue mission from the very start. I'll conclude with the Mishnaic teaching of Rabbi Tarfon, who taught in the 1st century, Hayom katzar, the day is short, v'hamlacha merubah, and the task is great, v'hapoalim atzelim v'hasachar harbeh. Those who would be catalysts and activists are easily distracted, but the reward for those who step forward is tremendous in satisfaction. Uva'al habayit dochek, and the master of the house, that is God of all the world, is impatiently knocking at the door. So let's get to work.